Hi, guys. I'll give you a brief introduction to myself. I've got some stuff we'll talk about, obviously, during my presentation, give you a little bit more of my background, but my name is Chris Giannos. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Humanize. I spent a lot of time at Zillow and then spent some time building a real estate team myself. So I've been on both sides of the fence, and I'm excited to be with you guys. Mike.
All right. I'm Mike Simonsen. I'm the founder of Altos. If you don't know Altos, at Altos Research, we track every home for sale in the country every week. We do all the pricing, all the supply and demand, all the analytics of that. And we publish that so that you see it far before you see it in the traditional headlines and before your clients know what's happening. What we're going to do today is we're going to spend a few minutes on the national data, what's happening right now, and what we can see already for 2024. I'm going to start with the data there. Chris is going to dive into building the action plan for how you communicate with the data, how we're reaching people, how we're building the systems to do that. And then we're going to finish with a little bit of Altos, like actually implementing or actually walking through some of that workflow with the Altos report. So we got a bunch of people on the call, and I'm just going to dive into the data and we'll get rolling from there. Chris, feel free to jump in, ask me questions. I won't be able to read the chat while we're talking, but Chris, you can. And we have Lael from the Altos team is in the chat. So if we are referring to links, for example, on like go click and get this resource, it'll be in the chat and you can click through to go get it. We'll also follow up with email follow-up and of the recording, et cetera, along the way. All right, so that's how we're going to run today. Let's get started. Let's look at the national data. Here's what we know already and what we know about what's set up for 2024. Let's start with available inventory. There are currently 556,000 single-family homes available on the market around the country. This chart is multiple years, 8 years of history. And you can see that a few things are happening here. One is that we are just now in November, turning the corner, having inventory fall for the rest of the year. Inventory rose very late into the year, into November this year. Normally inventory peaks in September or even August, and then starts falling. You can see the line as a dotted line here at 2019, where in 2019, just before the pandemic, there were 859,000 single-family homes on the market, and right now there's 556,000. So way fewer than what normal used to be. Now there are more on the market now than during the pandemic frenzy when we were buying everything in sight. So that is like feels notably different, but there's a couple of things that we can think about for 2024. One is that there's no sign anywhere in the data of a huge surge of inventory. So if you have buyers or sellers on the fence wondering about what to do next, or maybe I'll wait and next year I'm going to have I'll swoop in for the bargains. There's no sign anywhere in the data that we're going to have a flood of inventory. Where might a flood come from? It might come from the economy taking a big tank, and therefore investors need to unload properties. Or maybe, there's some talk about Airbnb owners bought a bunch of stuff and now they're not getting rented, and therefore the Airbnb owners are going to have to sell. Or maybe people lose their jobs. Everybody's really fully employed right now, but if there's a big unemployment recession, then maybe that leads to inventory. There's a couple of things to think about with the recession, job loss. Assuming that a recession were to start like next quarter, and big job losses, it's really 2025 before you'd see inventory from that. And even then, because we have so much equity and because homeowners have such good mortgages terms, this seems very unlikely that we're going to see a flood of listings, even if we get a big spike in unemployment. The investors and Airbnb folks, could sell, but the reality is that none of them are selling now. Like there's nothing in the data that indicates any big surge of inventory in 2024. What could lead to inventory? Well, let's talk about mortgage rates. I have a view here of the same inventory chart over time. And I've highlighted when rates fall and when rates rise. The green is when rates fall and the red is when rates rise. The thing to remember is, and it might be different from the conventional wisdom that you're dealing with clients. Conventional wisdom is sort of like, well, once rates fall again, we'll have some more inventory. But the data shows that falling rates leads to less inventory. Rising rates leads to more inventory. Now, if rates fall, we'll have more transactions. So that'll be good for business, but your buyers will have less selection. So the buyers who are waiting for next year for cheaper rates, they may get more affordability, they will get cheaper rates, but they will also have more competition and less selection. And it's an important thing for people to keep in mind. So what we're doing here in this chart is you can see the inventory over time. And most of the last decade, we had low and falling mortgage rates. And we had inventory falling each year. So that's the green part on the far left side of the chart here. Then in 2018, mortgage rates rose. It rose from like 4 to 5%, 100 basis points. And at the beginning of 2019, inventory was higher than the previous year. It was bucked the trend from all decade long because rates rose. And then 2020, rates fell dramatically, inventory fell dramatically. Last year, rates surged, inventory surged. This year started off better for rates. And then rates rose all in the second half of the year to the highest level in multi-decades, right, in November. And inventory rose late into November. So the data is really clear that if next year, rates seem to be falling now from the last few weeks, if that continues into the next year, you're going to see what happens is lower rates mean lower holding costs, so we hold more real estate. Lower rates spurs demand more than supply, so inventory falls. So selection is less for buyers. So if rates continue to fall into the new year, then that implies that demand will pick up more than supply. We'll have less inventory, we'll have more competition, and that would imply price support for home prices in 2024. It's really clear in the relationship. Now, if rates jump, if they're at 7 now and they jump to 8 or above 8, that's likely to put a real freeze on the market. Inventory will grow, prices will probably decline in that environment. And, I don't predict mortgage rates. We measure the housing market. Mortgage rates could go up, they could go down from here. And I'm not convinced anybody can predict mortgage rates. So the important thing for working with clients is like, what do you expect to happen for mortgage rates? If you expect them to fall next year, you will have improved affordability, but you're likely to have less selection and more competition. This is a view of what we've had all year is fewer sellers than normal. New listings each week. The taller the bar, the more new sellers are in a given week. Each bar is a week. And you can see how this year, the bars are all shorter all year long. And when I say there's no sign anywhere in the data of a surge of new listings and surge of sellers, this is what I'm talking about. New listings remain very low. They after July 4th last year, rates were up, all the sellers walked away and inventory came down. And so the most dire predictions of the housing market didn't happen because you have a supply-demand equation. Demand was down. It's for an affordability challenge, but supply was down also. And we ended up in a very balanced market with fewer transactions, but sufficient demand for the homes that were available at these prices. And so that's what we saw. So what we can see now in the last few weeks is slightly more sellers than last year. And to me, this is optimistic for transaction volume in 2024, more sales than 2023. We're at a point right now, we're at the lowest, sales rate in decades. If you follow the NAR numbers, we went from 6 million seasonally adjusted to under 4 million, 30% price decrease, or not price, volume decrease. Price is barely budged, but the volume decreased by like 30%. But what we're seeing now are the signals that we're turning the corner to have more sales in 2024 than we did this year. And it starts with supply. So this is new listings, and the dotted line lets you compare to last year at this time. We have slightly more sales, slightly more new sellers, and when we have more sellers, we can have more sales. The light portion of the bar are what we call immediate sales. So these are the ones that get listed and they take offers immediately. They go right into contract immediately. And what this tells us, you can see how big the light portion of the bar was during the frenzy, that we're, multiple offers, the going into listing on Thursday, into contract on Saturday, like that kind of activity. Right now, that's smaller. So what we're looking for here is growth in the new listings in the new year, and not having those immediate sales falls. So that would be the indication of another indication of more sales growing, turning the corner to have sales growth after the new year. We measure, in fact, if we look at pendings, the new pendings each week, this is, when you look at the active market, you can watch the pendings, and these are the ones that are going to be sold in 30 or 45 days or so. And what I'm looking at here is the percentage change of sales this year versus last year. And we started this year with 40% fewer new sales each week than the year prior. And all year long, we had dramatically fewer home sales. So there's a dotted line here at 0%. That's like above this line is expansionary. Below the line is contracting. The market was contracting all year long, all the way into October. But what we see now in November is now we're above the line the last few weeks, which means we are the first few weeks of seeing sales growth over the previous year. So these are the early signals of the market recovering a little bit. And there's a rule of thumb here that I think is really valuable. Consumers are more sensitive to changes in mortgage rates than to the absolute level of the rates themselves. And what happened was when rates did their big jump, they went from 3 to 7.5 last year. That is a huge jump, and that slowed things way down. But if this year, if they stay at 7, they bounce around at 7, that's actually bullish for home sales. So people, mortgage rates are 7, they are shopping at 7, they know what they can afford at 7%. If rates jump to 8.5, suddenly they stop. That now their equation changes. So what we're seeing is if rates stay in the 7s next year, that implies we're going to have more sales, more transactions. We're going to have we'll have price support. All of those things will be slightly bullish. If rates go down from there, as I mentioned, if rates go down, that'll spur demand more than supply. Inventory will fall. That'll be price pressure. They'll have buyer competition. If rates jump, then this trend could reverse very quickly. And if rates jump over 8.5%, over 8, into the 8.5, like that's going to slow things very quickly. We can see that we know that affordability is a challenge around the country. And therefore, if rates jump up again, it's that change that matters. So the stability is actually lets us know. And really, it's like, from the data, it looks like the worst of the housing recession is behind us. Let's look at another leading indicator that I like. This is the percentage of homes that are on the market with price cuts. And each line in this chart is a year, the curve of the year. We start the year, you get fresh inventory, you get the buyers' price cuts decline. Then by the middle of the year, If it hasn't sold in March or April, now you start doing price cuts and it starts rising. By the end of the year, now it's at the holidays. If you haven't sold by the holidays, now you start doing more price cuts to move before the holidays. Price cuts usually peak in November, and they have this year. The thing to think about here is there's this gray band in the middle. That's the normal range. About a third of homes take a price cut before they sell, 30, 35%. When price cuts are above that, that's because demand is weak, and those are kind of bearish signals. When price cuts are below that, like the last few years, very few price cuts, that's because we have buyer competition, we have multiple offers, we have overbidding. You can see it in this data. And when rates jump, you see it in the price reductions like the exact same week. You can see it in the bright red line is last year. And in September of last year, price reductions had peaked, and then whoop, they started going up again because rates went from like 6.5 to 7.5 in September last year, and it slowed the market in the fourth quarter. So we can see it immediately in the data. What we see right now is the dark red line is this year. We have fewer price cuts than last year, which means we are set up for slightly better price support in the first quarter. It's not great, but we're also watching now for it to start declining into the new year. Last year, because from November through March, rates fell, you could see the price cuts at the beginning of this year, the price cuts fell dramatically. They went from above normal into the normal range. And that's why first quarter of this year, people were like, wow, we've got multiple offers. We've got an inventory problem. And you could see it really starting in January of this year. You could see that was happening. Rates started climbing again, and that reversed second half of the year. So what we can see right now, price reductions are past their peak. They're looking like they're heading down into the new year. And with price reductions at 38.7% of the market, it's high, right? We know that there's like, it's not smoking hot market, but looks like it'll get back into the normal range, assuming that we don't have another spike in mortgage rates. So for buyers and sellers, for sellers, the message is that while we have your house listed, I want you to watch this price reductions number. In our market, normal price reductions are 40%. And I'm going to show you a couple of these later on. I'll show you some local Altos reports, but like normal is 40%. Right now, we're just above 40%. And if this climbs while we have your house listed, this maybe means, and we're not getting offers, like we want to get ahead of this curve. So I'm going to put this report in your inbox every Monday. I want you to look at this one number and keep an eye on it while we have your house listed. On the other hand, if we get into the spring and you have buyers and this number is falling, you say, look, I know you think that the demand was like weak, and I know you were waiting for affordability, but guess what? We can see everybody else has been waiting for this affordability also. There's fewer price reductions each week. That means if we want the house, we need to make the offer now. And you can really communicate the leading indicators with the price reductions data. I'll show you some of the local data. We're going to wrap up looking at some Altos reports after I hand it to Chris, and then and actually how we talk about the data there. And then let's look at prices, and then we'll hand it over, and Chris will talk about using this in your business each day. Median home price in the U.S. is $425,000. That's 2% higher than last year at this time. We're going to finish the year with slightly more inventory, with price increases, and we're probably going to finish the year with more homes in contract than we finished last year. So expanding sales, slightly growing inventory, and home price support. It actually sets us up for a little bit of a growth year in 2024. It's kind of encouraging. The bright red line here is a fun one that I like to look at. It's the median price of the newly listed cohort. Each week, the homes that get listed, the sellers and the listing agents know exactly where to price the homes. They know how many bidders there were on the last offer. That they know open house traffic, and so when it's weak, they price down. When it's strong, they price up. And what we can see is a leading indicator. So this has got Thanksgiving week data in, but the median price of the new listings is 6% higher than what it was last year at this time. So that's pretty bullish for home prices, and it implies that buyers are buying at these prices. It tells us that homes that get listed now, they take offers maybe in January, it closes in February and March. Like, you can already see that there's year-over-year price gains into March because we're looking at the home price data. All right, so that's the national view. At Altos, we have an ebook where we help you look at the data and talk about the data for your business. There'll be a link in the chat where you can go download it. If you don't have it, it's a free ebook. It's really great using the market data in your business. It has scripts and ideas about how to talk about the data the way I do it. I'm going to hand it to Chris. He's going to give the strategies, and then we're going to finish up looking at some Altos reports and talking about the data for local markets.
Thank you, Mike. That was awesome, man. I think as agents, taking a page out of this playbook and remembering that we should be making decisions in our business based off of data, right? The cool thing about data is it can never lie to you, right? It's the facts, it's real, it exists, and it is the truth above all else. So that was awesome, man. Thank you for giving us that walkthrough. To quickly walk you guys through a couple of things I'm going to be talking about, and then I'll introduce myself. When Mike and Altos reached out to me and said, hey, Chris, we want someone that can come in and talk a little bit about, hey, now that we've got this data from the market and what it's going to look like in 2025, we want some, hey, what do we do with it, right? And I jumped at the opportunity. This is my complete wheelhouse, and I love talking about this stuff, as I'm sure you guys will learn. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. Given by the fact that I have about 25 minutes with you guys, there's 3 things I want to cover primarily. 3 things that you can do in 2024, or if I were you, 2024 started like 2 weeks ago, in my opinion, right? You got to be jumping into the stuff sooner rather than later. But 3 things that I'm going to walk you through that you can implement in your business using data to have these conversations with your customer. The first thing we'll talk about is we're doing it live. I'll tell you what that here means momentarily. Leveraging your own database. Calling and emailing isn't dead. You're just inconsistent. There are so many leads living in your own database already that want to buy or sell real estate. It's not even funny. We just have to put together a systematic plan to get in front of those folks. The third thing I'm going to talk about is the 7 Ds. For those of you guys that follow Tom Ferry, you kind of know what these are, but these are life events. I've got a specific strategy that one of my coaching clients is using right now to generate more at-bat opportunities with a specific life event that I'll walk you through. Then we'll end with some Q&A with Mike and I, and Mike's going to kind of give you guys a live demo of how to actually pull some of this reporting functionality out of Altos so that you can use this content I'm about to walk you through to your advantage and more intelligently, if that makes sense. So, quick intro to me before we get started. That's me. My name is Chris Giannos. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Humanize. We're a recruiting and educational platform for agents. Also a speaker, do some coaching kind of around here. Why I'm qualified to talk to you guys about what I'm qualified to talk about today. I spent the last 3 years actually building a real estate team in California before I got onto this side of the business. So I had about 250 agents. We sold about $1.5 billion in real estate from 2.5 years from scratch, primarily using online leads as the catalyst. I'm also involved in the angel investing community, the startup community, all that cool stuff. If you guys like lead conversion content or just general real estate coaching content as well, you guys can follow me on Instagram. That's my Instagram. Enough about me. Let's talk about the important stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about is doing it live, right? There's a quote I kind of want to get you guys in the mindset of before we jump into this content. And it's giving without expectation leads to receiving without limitation, which is a hippie kind of head in the clouds way of saying, you provide value to the marketplace, people are going to come from out of the woodwork to actually work with you, right? But it's something where you can't necessarily do it once and expect people to just go, okay, cool. You presented on data one time in my marketplace. Can you come list my house? That might happen. That's probably the worst thing that could happen to you if you did it one time and you got a result, because then you would think that's the way it's going to be forever. The simple reality is it's a consistency play about this first thing what I would talk about. So I'm going to give you the idea. I'm going to give you the why, and then I'm going to give you the how, and then we'll go to the next topic. So the idea here is really simple. The idea is Instagram. More importantly, Instagram Live. And the idea is doing it consistently forever. So I want to walk you through what the how is here. I've got several of my clients that are doing this. It's working really, really well. But the idea here is picking a specific day and time every single week and going live on Instagram. I'm going to walk you through the pros of that here momentarily, but making sure you do it every single week for the next like 6 to 12 months, right? And holding yourself accountable to that. So here's the how, right? And the why more importantly here, and why I think this is something that I'd be focusing on going into 2024. The first is This is hyper localized. For those of you guys that aren't using your social media following as a way to generate more business, it's insane. In my opinion, it's the greatest email drip campaign of all time, because the simple reality is this: you've got 200, 300, 400, maybe you've got a couple thousand followers on Instagram. Do people spend more time on Instagram every day than they do on like their email inbox? I don't know about you guys, but my email inbox for my personal account has about 150,000 emails in it. I get so many drip emails, it's not even funny. And most of them from real estate agents because of the space I'm in. But this is your way to get hyper localized and establish yourself as that digital mayor in your neighborhood. The next thing on here is consumer attention span is low. I'm not asking you to get on social and talk for 30, 45 minutes, an hour about market conditions where you're at. This is a 3 to 5 minute long market update, right? And in that ebook that Mike just talked about, there's so much content, it's not even funny, about how to actually present local market conditions about your specific area. If you don't think that's valuable to consumer standpoint, I would challenge you to think about what kind of consumers and how educated they are now, right? If this were 15, 20 years ago, was information as readily available as to us now as it is back then? No, consumers now are an order of magnitude more educated than they were in the past. So remembering that, people are making data-driven decisions. And if we're the source and truth of that data, does that make us look good? Of course it does. It's absolutely insane. It makes us look like we know everything. Next, there's not a huge cost barrier to starting this activity. When I was putting together what 3 things I would be focusing on in 2024, a couple of weeks ago, I got information about this presentation. I was sitting there going, cool. Anyone can tell you guys to just throw a ton of money at something. I can say, hey guys, spend $10,000 a month on mailers for the next 12 months and it's great. But the simple reality is some of us might not be in the position to do that, especially with the way the market's been. There's no huge cost barrier here. You already have an Instagram account. And if you don't, you might have bigger problems than like the not having anything to do it with, right? Social media is super important now, but there's no barrier to cost entry here, right? You could start doing this tomorrow. You could close the knowing doing gap saying, oh my gosh, Chris, this is awesome. I'm going to go do it. You could start doing this tomorrow at 10 o'clock and start blasting about it on social now and get it in your calendar every single week forever moving forward on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that other than yourself, right? Next, this builds consistency and brand awareness. The clients that I have that are running this play now have become that person in their local market. They walk into the little grocery store on the corner of the farmer's market and the person checking them out at the cash register, oh, you're the Tuesday at 4 o'clock guy. And it's like, yeah, I am. It builds market ubiquity. The way you want to think about marketing, it doesn't matter if you're trying to generate listing opportunities, you're trying to generate more buyer opportunities, or you're just working on your brand as a whole. The simple reality is this: the best approach is all of the approaches. And it's that simple. It's an omnipresent channel wherever the consumer is looking, regardless if that's you on social media doing your market updates every Tuesday at 10, or if they're at the grocery store. I don't know about you guys. I was a total nerd for those little dividers at the grocery store, right? Because I was that guy in my neighborhood and people knew me because of that. And guess what? Did I list 10 houses a month because of the little divider at the grocery store? No. But when they had the little divider at the grocery store and they got a mailer from me and they saw a Facebook ad of me, guess what? Do I become someone that's top of mind when they're thinking about real estate then? The answer is absolutely. So building your brand awareness, if you do it consistently, right, every Friday at 2 p.m. or whatever that looks like, you're going to establish yourself as that person and people come to have that expectation from you. Next, by demonstrating market knowledge, you look and sound like a pro. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my gosh, Chris, I'm terrible on video. Oh my gosh, Chris, what am I going to say? Mike and Altos have already fixed the what are you going to say part, right? I have a script in my next slide that I'll be able to send you guys to with this deck. The simple reality is that part's done. That's the hard part, right? The easy part is getting on camera. And I know what you're thinking. I can hear the complaints now. Chris, I'm terrible on video. I don't want to do video. I hate video. That's okay. And I'm going to talk directly to you for a second. And this might kind of upset a couple of you guys, but that's what I'm here for, is to push you outside your comfort zone. If you don't want to be on video, that's okay. Someone else will, right? Someone else will get out of their comfort zone and do that. And guess what? Are they going to be a little bit more top of mind than you in their marketplace? Yeah. So you don't want to do it. That's an even better reason to go and do it, right? So these are 5 reasons why I think this is a good thing, right? This Instagram live weekly at the same time every single week, right? The how here is really simple. And again, my whole goal was to give you a tactical blueprint, something that you can get this deck after this presentation and go, cool, how do I go and do this? And this is exactly how I would do it. Decide where you're going to be discussing specifically, right? The idea of Mike's in San Francisco, it probably wouldn't be super valuable for Mike to go on and say, hey, I'm going to present on the whole Bay Area, right? That's a really big geographical swath. And what's applicable on the peninsula in San Francisco where he's at might not be applicable for Oakland on the other side of the bay, right? So I encourage you to get granular. And how would I be thinking about this from how do I select where I want to be? Go where you've got some traction, right? There's always that idea of, oh, well, Chris, I'm in Newport Beach. I want to sell more houses in Dover Shores. That's awesome. There's like 5 to 7 people that have been farming and running that market now for the last 40 years. For those of you guys that are in Orange County, you know who I'm talking about, right? To say, oh, I want to do this because it's a new market and I just want to jump into it. Be tactical. Think about where you've got brand and where you've got traction already. That's where I would be talking about. If that's the neighborhood you live in currently, or a neighborhood that you're already proactively farming, or a neighborhood that you go and door knock once a week, that's where I would be talking about. Can you talk about multiple places and do multiple videos? You absolutely can. But as humans, if you guys haven't noticed, we do this thing where we want to overpromise ourselves and set these big, hairy, audacious goals. We call them BHAGs in my world, right? And then what happens is we set it too big and it never happens because it's way too much work. Set something small. Pick one area to start. I would encourage you to pick one little neighborhood, which is the last thing on here, and just get consistent with it. If you can do a full month of every Friday at 10 a.m. Instagram live market updates like this with data to back it up, and you do that for an entire month, cool. Add another day in another neighborhood, right? But just get intentional with it and start small. Next, getting these reports from Altos. Mike just put that ebook in here where after this presentation is done and I kind of walk you through my 2 cents, he's actually going to show you how to get into Altos and pull these reports out. So all you got to do is go in there. Mike's going to give you a full demo of it. So that again, we're closing that knowing doing gap for you guys. So you don't necessarily need to think about it. Next, start posting daily on your stories that you are going to be live on this date and time. Hype it up. If you guys need an example of what this looks like, go on my Instagram after we're done and you'll see how I pumped this event up, right? Every couple of days for the last week, I was putting out some piece of content, whether it be on my stories or a reel or just a post in some way, shape, or form, just letting people know, hey, it's coming. And I know what you're thinking again. Well, Chris, I posted about it and only 2 people showed up. That's okay. It's not going to start with a massive audience. I can assure you that to get the number of people that are on this presentation right now that are here, Mike and the team at Altos have probably worked years on this. That doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't matter how many people come to the first one. Even if 0 people come on, I'm going to tell you why it's still valuable to do this type of stuff, right? Review the market update outline that I've provided here. So you can click the here after you get this deck afterwards. And there's an actual script of what this sounds like. And again, in that ebook that Altos has, there's going to be about a dozen different other scripts that you can use for these as well. Progress, never perfection. I wrote this here really intentionally. I want you to remember that the first time you do this, are you going to be probably a little awkward? And are you going to be a little nerded out going, oh my gosh, this is my first time I'm doing it. I'm nervous. Yes. And then guess what? The second time gets a little easier. And then guess what happens the third time? A little bit easier. And it just gets progressively better and better as time goes on. So again, progress, it's never going to be perfect. I've been on video now for years. I still get nervous before presentations, and I'm sure Mike does too. That's just a part of the game, right? You get a little nerves and then you come on and you do it, right? And it works out. So do not get in your own way with that. Lastly, get somewhere quiet and free of distraction with good light, right? If you notice, Mike and I are both pretty well lit. I'm in a room with some natural light now. These little things make it a huge, huge difference. And again, the biggest thing I hear when I'm recommending this to my coaching clients to do is, well, Chris, I got to buy a tripod and I got to buy a light. I got to buy this microphone and I got to buy all this stuff. That's a defense mechanism more than it is anything, because it's delaying the inevitable. I have to have all this stuff to do video. You don't. You have this, like we all do. It's in your pocket right now. This is all you need in an Instagram account and you're off to the races. So again, close the knowing doing gap. This is one thing that you could go and do immediately. The key here is pick a date, get your data, and calendar it for the rest of the year, right? That's a really easy challenge because there's only like 3 Fridays left, right? Just get intentional with it. Consistency is your best friend here because it's not going to happen overnight. It's the same story when an agent goes, oh, Chris, I sent out 5,000 postcards in my neighborhood and I didn't get a single phone call, so I stopped doing it. Cool. How many times did you do it? Once? twice. It's a consistency game and it builds over time. Cool? All right, we'll keep the party going. Next idea I want to walk you through. So rinse, repeat forever, same day, same time, every single week, no matter what. That's how you win with that. The next thing I want to talk about is leveraging your database specifically. Remember, and this again, I totally will get the fires and pitchforks and the torches and stuff saying stuff like this. There are no bad leads. How do I know this? Because I've spent millions of dollars of my own money on online leads before. I worked at Zillow. I bought Zillow leads. I've bought Realtor.com stuff, pay-per-click, Google, Facebook, you name it. I've done it all. There are no bad leads ever. Occasionally, I know what you're thinking, Chris. I got a SpongeBob SquarePants lead with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 phone number. That's not a good lead. I agree with you. That's not a good lead, but that's not a real lead, right? There's just leads that are going to take a little bit longer to transact. I guarantee you that in 9 out of 10 people that are on this call right now, in your own database, you have tons and tons and tons of opportunity that's existing. And the only thing preventing you from helping those people either buy or sell real estate in this market is consistency and follow-up. Because guess what? Done the same thing before. Had a 160,000 person database. I've paid people to call through that database before and just ask like, hey, how did your home search go? So many people transact. Probably like 50% of these people end up doing something within the first year or two. It's just a touch game. So I want to talk to you about how we can get in contact with these people and kind of revive some of the stuff that's in our database currently. And this is what I would be doing if I was starting fresh in 2024, right? So this isn't theory. This is what my game plan would be if it were me. The idea is you don't need more leads. Have you guys ever seen Back to the Future? Marty, we have to go back through our old leads. I'm encouraging you and making a joke here to make this a little bit more palatable because it sucks to hear, oh my gosh, I have to go through my database again, Chris. I encourage you to think about it. So the why here, you've already spent the money and time to generate these opportunities, right? If you've got a database, it doesn't matter if there's 50 people in there or 500,000 people in there. I've seen databases of all sizes. The reality is this, those people are going to buy or sell real estate at some point in time, and getting through them is imperative, especially in this market with where we're going, right? Especially with all the data that Mike just went through. The market seems like it's stabilizing, right? This is going to be positive momentum. And the only thing that spreads faster than negative like information in a marketplace is positive information in a marketplace. That could probably be argued, but think about it. Positive news spreads well. If people are hearing Mike's message and it's being echoed, do we think that people are going to be coming back to life trying to buy or sell real estate? Encourage you to think about that. Most of us have thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars just sitting in our database. I've done this exercise with some of my coaching clients recently, going through and re-engaging their database, whether it be with an email newsletter, an email data update once a week, whatever it looks like. I've seen databases get revived. It's just a matter of doing it consistently over and over and over again. I'm going to walk you through the how here momentarily. Again, same concept as everything that I'm going to walk you guys through in here. There isn't a huge barrier to entry to do any of these tasks that I'm asking you to do. This isn't like you need to spend all of this money and umpteenth degree and thousands of dollars to generate this stuff. The only thing preventing you from calling through your database or emailing it using some of the tools that I'm going to walk you through here, Altos being one of them momentarily, is you. We get in our own way. We think that, oh, the solution is I need more top of funnel leads. I can almost guarantee you, and there's probably going to be a couple of exceptions to this rule, maybe, you don't need more leads. You need to go deeper with the ones that you already have, which is a very unpopular opinion, but it's reality, right? You know who's better at going deeper with the leads they have than all of us combined? And this is an unpopular opinion. Zillow. How many of you guys are on the consumer side of Zillow getting dripped on with property updates and property alerts and mortgage rates and all that good stuff? If you don't want to follow up with your clients, Zillow and Realtor.com will, right? And then guess what happens in those circumstances? They get sent to another agent, and that age-old story and loop repeats itself of they're selling us our own leads. That's because they're really good at follow-up, and that sucks. So don't fall for that trap. You can kill two birds with one stone. You can repurpose your Instagram lives on email. I'm going to walk you guys through a solution on how to do that. There's a website called opus.pro. If you haven't played with it before, you upload long form content and it coughs out short form content completely edited with captions. So those videos that you're recording that are 3 to 5 minutes long on Instagram Live, you can use that for email content. You just have to do the steps to get it out. Lastly, taking advantage of folks in your database that aren't on social media platforms. For those of you guys that have books of business that might not be super social forward, right? And you know who, it's a different group of people. My father's 63 years old. That dude is not on Instagram, right? I can promise you that. My dad is on Auto Trader all day long. That's all he does in his spare time is look at cars and send me classic cars. That's all he does, right? But he's not on Instagram. If I went live on Instagram, that man would never know. So taking advantage of folks in your database that aren't on social media platforms, there's only one or two ways you can do that. Well, three: email, phone call, or direct mail. Those are the three ways you can get in front of those folks without showing up at their house like a stalker, right? So just knowing that this is a way to do that. So the how here and how to actually get into action doing this. Use the Altos Research email campaign functionality consistently forever, right? If your client database is not on some sort of automated drip, and I encourage you to think about it a little differently. Agents do this thing where if a client isn't ready, and I can say this because I am an agent, I've been a team leader, I've done all this, where, oh, well, the client wasn't ready to buy yet, so I just put him on a drip campaign of properties that he likes, and yeah, I'm going, cool. Then what? He's going to get an email from you and 10,000 other people every single month. Very rarely do people just automatically engage and re-raise their hand saying, hey, I got your email. I sifted through thousands of emails to get to it, but I got your email, right? Now I'm curious. If you're providing something of value, I want you to think about what perceived value is from a consumer standpoint. Do we think that sending someone listings makes us valuable? Can they get access to listings with or without us? Yeah. Guess what? They can go to Zillow or homes.com or realtor.com or any of these portals, and they can look at inventory without ever talking to someone. So when we're trying to think of, hey, what will that person find valuable? Information they can't readily access themselves. Is there many solutions online where as a homeowner, I can go on and type in a zip code and get access to a full market report of that area, market penetration and days on market? Can I get that? Or at least understand it? I might be able to get it at one point in time, but does that mean I'm going to understand what it really means? No. That's what makes agents valuable. We are a conduit of information, right? We prevent people from having to experience stress in the marketplace. The marketing and data you're able to get from Altos, all you are is a translator for that. You become a mouthpiece to tell why people this is important. Does that make sense to you guys? Cool. And I know I'm going through this fast, but I want to get through all this content because there's some super cool stuff here. So repurpose your Instagram live content to send to your database via email using opus.pro. This is an actual website. It's free to try. I use it for all my content. If you want examples of what it looks like, you can go on my Instagram. But basically, you can feed it long form content. So let's say Mike and I recorded this entire webinar. We could feed it into Opus and it will cough out 15 to 60 second long vertical videos, completely edited with audio, captions, everything done. So you can repurpose that. That type of content, I send my short form stuff to my email database every single week. The content that gets pushed on my Instagram gets sent to my long form database in an email, right? It's a way to get in front of different folks. So you can repurpose that content and make it ridiculously easy. Next, pick 1 to 2 days every single week to make phone calls. I know this is common sense. Tom Ferry walked in here earlier and went through my presentation. He was like, hey, I say that. This is never going to change. Getting consistent with the number of days you're going to spend on the phone is absolutely imperative. If you don't think you need to change what you're doing in this coming market, transaction volume is down, right? It's starting to look better, but it's down for the most part. If we do the same things and run the same plays that we ran in 2020 and 2021, guess what? Just naturally, from an economic standpoint, we're going to experience pain, right? Our business is going to slow down. So just picking a consistent day, I know that sounds like common sense, but it's on here. If your database is spotless, because I know some of you guys are going to use this, and I put really in here, like seriously, no one's database is perfect. I can promise you that. I'm in a mastermind right now in Dallas, Texas with Tom's top coaching group, right? There's about 30 of us in a room right now talking about what's working. If their databases aren't spotless, no one's is, right? I looked through a couple and it gave me almost a panic attack. I had PTSD of being a team leader. If your database is spotless, you're calling with an equity or a market update. You don't have to call with a, hey, do you want to sell your house? Or hey, do you want to buy a house? You're not calling with that. Hey, I'm giving you a quick call. I don't know if you saw, but inventory rates, it looks like we're actually projected to like have a slight bump up. This might mean something cool for you as a buyer. I'm curious if you saw that information. Open-ended question. What do you think someone's going to say at that point? I didn't know that. The news isn't telling them that. Is the news giving them positive information and the sunshine and rainbows? No, for the most part, it's fire and brimstone. So just remembering that you don't have to call with purpose. It can be just a value add. And lastly, if your database isn't spotless, which I said is likely, Call with this cleanup script. Again, after you guys are done with this, you can click the script button. It's hyperlinked on this presentation. I've got a script. It doesn't matter if the leads are 10 days old or 10 years old. It's a warm-up script of what you can have those conversations and what those sound like. Last thing I want to talk to you about, and this is where I would say is super valuable, and this is the coolest thing I'm going to talk about. So stay with me. Rinse, repeat, forever. Cool, we get it, Chris. Number 3 is the 7 Ds. So life events that are unavoidable, but prevent opportunities for us as agents to help stressed out people. If you're looking for unique ways to get in front of people, I've got a workbook, an ebook very similar to Altos that you guys will have access to. It gives you a bunch of different ways that you can get in front of folks that are experiencing the 7 Ds. I did not make the 7 Ds up. My mentor, Tom Ferry, made the 7 Ds up, but I've got a strategy that I have some of my coaching clients using right now that's working really, really well to generate transaction-ready buyers and sellers. So if transaction-ready buyers and sellers are important to you, stay with me for like 2 minutes. So for those of you guys don't know what the 7 Ds are, right? These are them: diapers, death, diamonds, divorce, diplomas, defaults, and de-relocation. Tom made the last one up. If you can't tell that's Tom's humor, that is textbook Tom humor. But the idea is that people that are experiencing one of these life events, it's usually meaning it's a time to buy or sell. If you look at all 7 of these, during these points in time, are we usually like super not stressed out? No, all 7 of these require and put us through massive amounts of stress. I just got married. When I got diamonds, that was the most stressed out I've been in my entire life. Planning a wedding and running a business. Are you kidding me? It would have been exponentially easier with a great agent. Fortunately, I was the agent also in my transaction, so double stress, right? But this is an idea that one of my clients is using that's working really well. And again, in this workbook that I'll have you guys able to download, there's 14 different ways to get in front of these specific people experiencing these life events. So I want to get to the important part here. These are kind of the why here, right? But the reality is this: usually during one of those life events, people are inept and usually need to take big action. That's the single biggest thing I want you to talk about. All realtors are usually focusing on macro marketing, right? Mailers, Zillow, Facebook, whatever it is. Focusing at a micro level like this on specific life events, it's less competitive, because that's the simple reality. So here's what one of my customers is doing that I think you guys would find valuable. So Amanda Cruz Group, if you guys don't know her, she's awesome. She's based in New Jersey. She's a complete badass. She's using a wedding expo to generate buyer and seller opportunities. So, and how did she do this? She went on Google, typed in wedding expositions, right? They're conferences for people that are getting married. That sounds like my worst nightmare, but I'm sure it would be super cool for a budding bride, right? She researched wedding expos in the state of New Jersey and found one that happens every single month, 30 minutes from her office. So what she did was she registered. One time she spent $1,000 on a booth setup. So that included like a nice tablecloth, a backdrop, t-shirts for her and her team, et cetera, et cetera. One time is less than $1,000 to get it done. She created a QR code to scan for win a pair of Louboutin wedding shoes, right? And people at this wedding expo would come by, and who doesn't want to win a pair of red bottoms to get married in? They would scan this QR code, and it was information capture. She's been doing this for like, give or take, about 6 months now. The first weekend we ran this play with this QR code, she got 178 people that scanned it at this expo, right? 6 of them ended up getting pre-qualified to buy within 30 days. So I don't know if those numbers sound good to you, but getting in front of, again, whether it's people getting married or there's all sorts of different ways in here. And in this workbook, you'll have access to them. But thinking about how do I get in front of folks that are going to have a strong motivation to sell is huge going into this market we're going to be going into. Because like Mike kind of said, with where rates are at, with where inventory's at, are people just selling to sell? Usually they're selling because they need to sell. They have a life event that's causing them to do that, right? So figuring out how to get in front of those folks with huge motivation is going to be huge going into this next market. So that is all I have for you guys on my end. I've got a life events guide that's got 7+ different ways to generate leads. I'll make sure that the Altos team has access to that so that you guys can go through that and kind of not just hear me throw up about it and actually be able to read through it and put some of it into action. So that is all I got. In closing, this is, I don't know if you've seen this, the Shia LaBeouf meme where he's like, just do it. Same concept. Just pick one of these things, please. Don't do it for me. Don't do it for yourself. Pick someone in your life that's super important to you that would benefit from you selling more real estate in some way, shape, or form. Just pick one of these things and go do it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do a quick, let me do a quick screen share of of the Altos reports. We'll
There you
talk
go.
about doing the videos from the Altos report specifically. So what I have up here is the Altos system open. In Altos, you have your reports for every zip code you work. This is my account. I've got national. I've got people all over the country. But what you can see is on my reports, it might be city, it might be zip code level, and I can see who opened them and which of my contacts are reading and which ones they're reading and where they're calling from. I have my contacts. So Chris was saying, work the database that you have. And what I can see is like, this is my existing database. I've got 178 new leads this week, but I can see exactly who is opening my market reports. And then I know who to call. So I can use this as my call list. We have our email campaigns, and Chris was saying we want to put that email in their inbox every Monday or once a week or once a month, all year long. You want it to keep going. And what we can see on our email campaign. So I send one out. We send 28,000 this week, and we had 22,000 opens. That is like over 50%. There's some duplicate people open multiple times in there, but what this says is that people care about the market data. And Chris, your point was you can put them on a new listing strip, but two problems with that. One is everybody's on the new listing strip, and two, there are no new listings.
Correct.
What are you tripping to? But the market data is always fresh.
One thing
It's
to add,
always got a story.
One thing to add here too that I think is just super worth calling out from a technology standpoint. I, as like on the software side, have used a lot of different emailing, different platforms and stuff. To have a delivery rate that high with that volume of sending is insane. So beyond just doing it, from my experience, I've never seen that before. So this is coming completely off the top of my head. From a software standpoint, that is incredible that you guys are able to maintain that type of delivery rate with that volume of sending. Because typically with some of my other customers that are using other platforms, they'll send 10,000 and only 2,000 of them get delivered because it'll get kicked back for spam or something. So that is incredible, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. These are all opt-in leads for Altos. Like these are people who want it, right? They're not spammy at all. But what it tells us is that people care about the market.
Yep.
And it's always fresh. So there's always a story. And so here's what I'm going to do. Like, this is an Altos report. This one's branded for Altos, but when you have it, it's branded for Chris, right? It's your report that's going to your clients. The leads that convert on it go into your lead database and you can watch them open so that you know when to call them. But when we're doing video, a lot of people are like, Mike, what do I say? What do I say on the video? Here's what we do. I just picked up, I don't know this part of Austin, 78702, but what we do is all the Altos reports have the quick readable at a glance. We can see the market action. This is balanced, barely in the seller's side. But when we're doing the video, we literally read the data. We start here. This is this week. The latest data for this week is in this real-time market profile. I go, the median price in 78702 is $879,000 this week. That is ticked down a little bit from last week, but it's been in the same range over actually the last couple years. So you might have heard that home prices backed off in Austin, but in this part of town, they're flat. They have not fallen. And that's because we have reasonably close demand. It's way less than we had 3 years ago, but home prices are not falling. We know that there are currently 116 homes on the market in this part of town. 51% of those have had price decreases. People are definitely feeling the affordability challenge, but fewer price decreases from October when rates were spiking. So what we can see now is consumers are reacting to the mortgage rates are falling. People are buying some of those homes, and we can see that there are fewer price reductions each week. So obviously the markets, people respond very quickly to mortgage rates. And if you're a buyer, waiting for mortgage rates to fall will help you with affordability. But remember, we can already see competition increasing because there are fewer price cuts in this part of Austin than we had earlier. And bam, I'm just reading the data here. We can do more in this. We can go down into price ranges. So at the bottom of the report here, we have the median price is $879,000. But what we can see, what's really fascinating, is the $1 million price range in this part of town has the fastest days on market. So I know you think the market's slowing, but if you're buying at this price point, we need to take action.
You know what I would say too, Mike? You speak about this stuff so intelligently and kind of so effortlessly. I think a good way for people to get familiar with this, in addition to downloading your guys' ebook, is Mike's got a YouTube channel. When I was getting prepared for my presentation, I went onto the Altos YouTube channel and just kind of listened to Mike's presentation skills so that we could complement each other well. If you're an agent, you were trying to figure out like, hey, how do I get some reps in to do this better? One, practice is going to make perfect, but two, go on that YouTube channel, right? Just watch a couple of videos of Mike. Like one, it's almost like ASMR videos, right? Mike's got that super soothing voice, sounds like a radio host. So it's kind of an enjoyable experience too. But two, you'll see someone that's been doing this for decades, right? And like master at their craft doing it. And I've always been a big fan of like, I do, we do, you do, right? If you want to get good at something, watch someone else do it for a little bit. Don't do it forever, right? And don't take too much time, right? Remember, close the knowing doing gap and start practicing. But like, go on there and watch a couple of these videos because he's so good at it. Like, might as well get some double-edged sword. You're learning about how to present. You're also learning about market conditions at a national level, right?
Yeah. And when you connect with our team at Altos, we'll show you how to set up your reports, get them out to your people, get them out to your database today. You can pull one up and record a video today. That's and we're out of time. So we don't obviously have time to look at everybody's local data, but you know, when you connect with our team, you look at the local data. You know what we can do, I can stick around in the chat, Chris, and we can make sure all the questions are handled and things like that at the end.
Yeah, I'm good for some time.
Great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We have some look in the links for in the chat for any links to go grab stuff. Chris, you'll follow up with your life events workbook. Yep. I'm looking forward to reading that.
I'm sure it's got some cool stuff in there.
That's great.
Time, Mike. This was awesome. Thank you for the invitation, guys. And hopefully I was able to bring some value to you all, and I'll see you guys all soon.
Really terrific. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.